Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today. It is March 22nd, and welcome to the fifth episode of the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips, and tonight I am joined live with my co host, Travis Kirkendall and Andy Van Beber. How are you two today?
Better than you
Doing
are.
great. Better than you, yeah.
Amen to that. I will put the disclaimer up right away. You guys will not be hearing too much from me tonight, and that'll be good for your ears and my nose and throat, as I am experiencing a bit of the man cold today. It is pretty hitting pretty hard, harder than usual. So we have a wonderful
He's
show
lying. He has
lined up
COVID.
for.
He's yeah, he don't want to be part of the show, guys. Just
you
don't
know,
don't believe.
if it was COVID, at least it would be an excuse to not have to go outside and to be able to be off of work
Sean,
for
you
two
should just
weeks. But
social distance yourself from the show tonight. Let us take care of it. How about that?
I believe me, I am about to sign off here and let you guys take the reins. So don't worry. How was your guys' week aside from dodging the COVID in the air? How you guys do anything good this week?
Well, yeah, we I went out and spent some of my wife or some of our stimulus money and stimulating the economy by buying my wife a new Chromebook, or not Chromebook, a MacBook Pro. So she
All
officially now
right.
is more technically advanced than I am now. So
You are putting the $1,400 to use. I like
well,
it.
$1,400 times four.
And plus some change. So you guys didn't just buy a MacBook Pro, you bought like the Optimus Prime version of the
My
MacBook
wife,
Pro.
yes, my wife's computer is so much better than mine now. I'm so jealous.
Well,
It's not even funny.
so she can stream the hub in 4K when she needs to. I like it. I like it. Travis, how about yourself?
Oh my gosh.
Not too much, man. We went and did some hiking yesterday.
Is
You know,
hiking in
uh,
Chicago just walking up the Sears Tower?
um,
uh, I mean, from someone who lived in Alaska 4 years, we had our hopes up, but then reality hit us, and it's like, well, we're not. It's not the same, but it was a good day. We had a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a good weekend,
Good.
and
No, that's what
worked
I
all
like
day
to
today, and here we are.
that's what I like to hear. Well, awesome. Well, I hope everyone else listening at home had a great week. I know things are kind of ever changing as we're falling into the spring season. If you guys are like me, you're dealing with a lot of flower sex, and your nose has got a lot of pollen up it right now. So that
oh,
is
fantastic, isn't it?
the reason for the season. Well, without further ado, we've got a great topic lined up for this week, and for better or worse, um, definitely I would say for worse, it kind of aligns at a very interesting day in history, where just kind of now all understanding that there has been a major shooting in Boulder, Colorado today, earlier this evening or early afternoon, and we had already discussed our topic for the week. We are going to be talking gun control, and we might touch a little bit on this as more news breaks and as we kind of learn a little bit more about the situation. I'm going to do some research while the other guys are talking. But we did have this research topic kind of planned out beforehand, and we are going to be discussing gun control today. So without
and and
further,
and other things too.
yeah,
We wanted to discuss too on our what's trending thing this week. We were going to discuss the if we'll start with that, and maybe that'll help things out a little bit.
yeah,
Um,
for sure. Well, I do kind of want to add as far as like stimulus spending goes, I knocked my car payment down, and we are just a couple few payments away, and we've got another chunk of change coming in, so we will be officially debt free in just a matter of days.
oh
So
man,
That's
congratulations,
awesome.
cheers,
pal!
cheers to that.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah. So what did?
in other news, we also we topped the 340 mark on 340 likes and follows on our Voice of Reason
Oh,
podcast. So
nice.
I was very pleased about that to see that we had 340 likes. So that was very awesome to see that. So, but thank you guys so much. The word is spreading, and we do have a lot of people who are following us, and that is awesome. So, and we have our
We are.
usual Now, and look at this. We have Martha Hypes and Ryan Robbins are online with us now. So Ryan
Oh
Robbins
boy.
is online. So we won't talk about certain food condiments or anything like that tonight, will we, Sean?
We will keep, well, funny enough, I did visit a high school today. I kid you not, they were serving corn dogs, but we will leave it at that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well,
No,
sorry, Ryan. But no, we were one of the things that Travis and I were talking about yesterday, and this is we were talking about the NCAA. What was that girl? I had that girl's name and I forgot what it was now, but she was an organ player. And this is what I was wanting to share this week with what's trending. And this was the she was comparing the weight rooms to from the women's to the men's. And when you look at the women's, they had one rack. I don't even call it the rack. I guess I'd call it a pyramid of dumbbells. And then she says, "Well, you want to know what the men's look like?" And she had, of course, one of her college mates are playing over in the men's tournament, and they sent her a video. And what you see then are the two weight rooms side by side. And then she said, "Well, NCAA gave a statement saying the reason why they were cutting that it was because of space." And then she takes a video, and we'll post a video to our page later on of her TikTok that she posted, and you just see this wide open room. And of course, then NCAA being what NCAA is, they the next day they issued a statement saying, "Oh, we're sorry, blah blah blah, and here's your new weight room." And they just like overnight. So I think it's a sham. And I was a
Yeah,
I coached girls basketball, and albeit it was junior high, but I coached that for 10 years. Well, you guys were still there too. I coached for 10 years, and I'm starting back up again. I'm coaching my daughter's team. And when I heard this, I was steaming mad. And hey, Greg Rodnow. Hey, Greg, how are you? And Ryan Robbins said, "Sean, did you have the special sauce with them?" So whatever that means. So anyway, as a as a as a coach, I was highly offended by that. About what was going on there and everything. And I think the NCAA, and my wife and I were talking about this. Girls, girls athletics does not have. I mean, I don't know if I want to say the financial draw or whatever it is that the men do, obviously, but still, I mean, that was a slap in the face, I think, to the women who were the collegiate athletes who just say, "Oh, well, let's go get stretched, let's go get warmed up," and they go to they go to they go to their weight room and they've got like a pyramid of weights. That was such a joke.
well, and the big thing that I notice, and here's the thing about the NCAA for me when it comes to colleges. These athletes are not allowed to make money off of their athletic talents, right? I believe it was Johnny Manziel back in his date or in his prominence and as a college football athlete, his name alone like netted that university like somewhere in the ballpark of like $1 billion, and he got zilch to show for it from that university. When the athletes, doesn't matter whether it's male or female athletes, when they are not allowed to have money made, every athlete at that university or within the NCAA should be treated to the same standard. It does not matter at the point where you don't pay the players, then you can't justify in any way, shape, or form why the women athletes were treated as such. And it wasn't even one of those situations where it was like the men's weight room was clearly nicer and then the women's weight room just wasn't as nice. It was a pure example of like they said, look, no one's going to be watching these basketball games, so what do we have, what can we get at the Dollar General next door, and what can we throw in there? Because here's the thing, my home weight equipment was better than that rack of dumbbells, and I got mine during COVID when you couldn't even find dumbbells on the shelves. You know, for well, I'm not sure if the women's basketball tournament is as large as the men's as far as like amount of teams go. I know in the men's it starts at 64. I'm not sure if the
Yeah,
women's tournament is
yeah,
is it the same
yeah,
size?
yeah, and again, and I totally agree with you there, Sean. I mean, so they're not paying the athletes. So Charles, and you make that point. Charles Barkley comes on, what was it on Saturday, and he says, "Well, you're not getting paid, but you get an education." The point remains, though. Okay, if you're not going to pay them, then you need to offer the exact same amenities
Yes.
for everybody. There
Across
should
the
be no
board,
if
yes.
right. There should be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It should be the same.
No,
And I'm
when I
go
saw
ahead,
it, it was
Travis.
definitely it's like an equal opportunity problem. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
the yeah, I mean, 100%. We all agree on that across the board. But like everyone's, whether they're on the male or female team, I mean, they're all athletes. They should all be given the same opportunities, no matter what money is involved with it. Which it shouldn't even be based off money. It should be based off of, hey, these are athletes either paying to go to this school and participate, or they're on a scholarship. It doesn't matter. It was a complete mess up on the NCAA's part. I mean, people, if you haven't seen these videos, you gotta see it. I mean, the comparison is just, you'll laugh at disbelief of like how messed up it is. Like, when he wasn't exaggerating, like they literally, for this is all the women's NCAA teams, right, that use this, or is that just the one
Right,
team?
right.
All of them.
It was
All of them.
it was all of them, and I just
Yeah, this yeah. So
one of our
this isn't just for one team.
it,
This is for all the
right,
teams.
and this was interesting enough. One of our listeners just chimed in and said NCAA stands for National Communist Against Athletes. So I mean, the NCAA is a money making racket. I've always said this because,
Yes.
and I brought this question up yesterday to address this, and so there somebody said they don't even have to follow Title IX because they receive no federal money, so they don't have to follow Title IX.
Mm.
NCAA does not have to follow Title IX. They don't even have to say, okay, we're going to have girls sports or anything like that. But to me, still, I mean, this has been an ongoing problem, and I mean, I think it's the way the American public views female sports too. But it's like, oh, well, women can't dunk and women can't do that. I'm just like, I and
Did
you
you all
guys
see the goodie bags as well that the
know
athletes were given?
what were they getting?
So
Ooh, I didn't hear this.
yeah, so same or different player. So if you look at if you could Google it right now, the like each individual player was given a goodie bag by the NCAA that had like stuff. And if you look at like the men's goodie bag they were given, filled with all kinds of like crazy stuff. And then on top of that, like extra deodorants and stuff. And then the women's bag probably had like 10 items that were just like basic. Like if you do a side by side comparison, the men's individual players probably got triple the amount of stuff that the
Oh
women's
my
got. I mean,
gosh,
and I don't know if that falls on like sponsors
that is.
necessarily,
I think that is sponsors. I think that's exactly what it is.
but either which way, there needs to be a standard. I mean, um, I understood that there were players that were complaining about the hotel conditions, but if I'm not mistaken, I don't necessarily think that came down to like the NCAA saying if you're a 1 seed, you're staying in this place. If you're a 2 seed, you're staying here. I think that came down to if and don't quote me on this, but I think that came down to the teams that were invited to the tournament reaching out to the list of hotels soon enough to make sure that they have reservations booked. So I know there were players from like Iowa, I do believe, that was like complaining about the way that they were the living conditions of their hotel, and that I think that just came down to their university. So that wasn't so much an issue like the weight room was, and like the goodie bags were for the players. Like if the NCAA is going to do something for a team or for an athlete, the standard has to be set across the board, right? It
I
is
agree.
different if we're talking like the NBA, like when LeBron James had a palace basically in comparison to, like some of his other teammates. Like these athletes are being paid, they're being paid their worth, they're being paid their value. I understand that. these are collegiate athletes that still have tests possibly while they're at the tournament, right? Depending on how much of a jerk their professors are.
Hmm.
So there needs to be a standard, and I'm really hoping that next year the NCAA, they better knock it out of the park when it
Oh,
comes
they
to
need,
getting
yeah,
this right. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I fully, I mean, I'm tired of hearing, I mean, you can compare NBA and WNBA and all that other stuff, but it's still, you know, if I don't know, I wonder if it's the same. I just wonder if it's not just in basketball that if it, like if it's because they just finished the women's Frozen Four on yesterday, and I just wonder if it's the same thing with women's and men's hockey. I wonder if it's, it just makes me angry that, and the NCAA, like I said, the NCAA, they're not paying these guys. So my question is, obviously, I know some of the money goes to fund scholarship programs that the NCAA does their profit sharing and everything. But I mean, I guarantee you these guys who are the president and all this other stuff with the NCAA, I guarantee you they're raking in six figures easy.
Oh, yeah, they're not hurting for a paycheck.
No,
No.
no.
And I might be, in America, truthfully, there's only one sport that I see consistently that places women in the same position as men's, like financially and as far as like exposure, and that's mixed martial arts. I think
Yeah.
is probably the only sport in America that I see, with the exception, and the only exception I really truly see is like tennis, and that's because some of the top women's athletes are like mega stars,
Right.
Venus Williams or Serena Williams, like mega stars globally. Whereas even if you look at like the United States women's soccer team, which is usually ranked number one, across the board, very rarely do we, are women's international soccer games being broadcast. And that's just, it could be due to the fact that we live in America, and soccer is not necessarily the largest sport. Um, but I couldn't tell you the last time I turned on ESPN and saw a women's hockey game, a women's basketball game. Could not
Hmm.
tell you. Couldn't tell
Right.
you the last
Right.
time I went
You
on
know,
and saw it.
another
So.
sport that's actually, I just realized this, that pays the same amount to both athletes, at least from the sport. The sponsors are different, but CrossFit actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
First place, second place, third place,
Yeah.
man or woman, they get paid the same
Agreed.
amount.
Yep.
But there's very few sports you'll see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and CrossFit is watched by, four people on ESPN
It's a
when
small,
it
yeah, it's a
comes on
small.
at 3 in the morning.
It's
Yeah,
I
it's
caught it one
it's
time.
growing.
Yeah.
Small
Yeah.
example.
Oh yeah.
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 Well, even I think in like women's bodybuilding, I think like in the Olympia, I think the men's Mr. Olympia takes home like $100,000 paycheck, and I think the women's Olympia bodybuilder winner is something like $10,000.
Oh my God.
Vast, and it might not be that little, but I know it's not quite that 100,000. But bodybuilding is one of those sports too that if you're not like that comes down to sponsors. Sponsors is how you eat in that sport. So
Right.
Yeah, definitely. You don't
Well,
get prize money.
Anyway.
but moving on. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to hear you guys kind of talk. I'm gonna be slowly quieting myself here just so I'm not sniffling in everyone's ears, but I'm super excited to hear your guys' conversation. I'm not sure if there's one of you guys that really kind of wants to take the reins on this one as far as getting it out the door. Looks like Travis is pointing at you, Andy. So
Oh,
I will turn the page over to you. I'm gonna quiet myself so you guys don't hear me cough and sneeze, and let's get into some gun control.
well, let's talk about this. And again,
Yeah, let's do it.
I've got my phone here. I'm kind of delayed on my phone, but I am, any comments that you guys have, please interject at any time, and we'll definitely shoot that in here. So, I'm just going to read a few things, and I prepare it. And Travis, anytime you want to jump in, please. And I'm gonna preface this. Travis and I talked about this yesterday, and I am an avid hunter outdoors. I love to fish. I love to hunt. Um, and I was taught, I took gun safety probably when I was, oh geez, probably fourth or fifth grade. And I went hunting with my dad, bow and arrow hunting with my dad for the first time when I was probably seventh grade. And so I've been a hunter for a good part of my life, close to 40 years. And you know, when I bring this up, I talked to Travis. I said, "Well, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a little bit," and so Travis is going to come in and out of this as we go along. So, and like I said, anybody online here, and I'll just check in on my phone. And we don't have any comments right now, but any comments you guys have, please interject this as we go along. So I'm going to start this out from the side though that I believe in, and this was a quote George Washington made in the first State of the Union address to Congress in 1790. And this is what he said. He said, "A free people ought not only to be armed, but also disciplined." Our founding fathers knew the value of a citizen soldier. It was a citizen soldier that helped defend our nation. But many still ask today, and this is what Travis and I were talking about yesterday, if that still needs to be the case with the development of modern military. And Sean and Travis both have been actively involved in the military. I know Sean did some babysitting down at Guantanamo Bay for a while. Travis did his stint up in Alaska, which I know he loved. And but with this new technology of even weapons, the fact remains that people are still armed. So here's the stat, boys. The number of violent, and so this is just released here a few weeks ago. The number of violent crimes, deadly crimes in the United States last year hit an all-time record high, and that is 19,000 in 2020. That is violence with a weapon. Okay. Most of this violent crime, according to Time magazine, occurred or affected Black communities. Now, again, I'm not saying this as a racist statement, all it's blacks and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm just stating the facts. Homicide rates increased by over 36% across 28 major U.S. cities. And as Sean mentioned earlier, there was the shooting in Aurora, Colorado today. 2020 was also a record year, gentlemen, in background checks in America buying firearms. The number of background checks in 2020 were just under 20 million. But still, we see a rise in crime. So this is where I'm going to go with this, each side. Okay, so I'm going to go with, let's go to the side of gun control. Is gun control the answer? Let's look at the strictest gun control in the world, the top 5. So we'll start number 1 with Singapore. Singapore, to own a gun, you must belong to a gun club. You must leave your gun at the club for storage. Okay, private citizens are not allowed to have guns in their home. They require a great deal of paperwork to acquire a gun. If you do get a permit, it's valid for 1 year. So you've got to do this. You've got to go through this thing over and over again. Okay. So there is a lengthy jail sentence for illegal guns. Illegal ammo is 5 years in prison. Now, this is the one that I found. This is firing a gun. This is in Singapore. Firing a gun, even if you don't injure anyone, can be punishable by death. Okay. So yes. So if police, and here's the other thing. So if a police shoot a criminal, they can expect a lengthy review. Okay. So the most recent statistics I could find in Singapore, they had 600. Now they didn't say 658 crimes per 100,000 people in 2018. Okay. They had last year, and this is something they brought out on, I guess, they had 201 crime-free days for violent theft last year. That was in 2020. Okay. So that was kind of impressive. China, owning a gun, then again, China, the inventors of gunpowder, owning a gun, gunpowder ammo is illegal for most of the population. Permits are acceptable for hunting, but you must also, again, belong to a hunting club. Last year, they had a assault. Now, China has a population of 1.3 billion people. They had last year, this was 2020, 85,226 assault cases out of 1.5 billion people. Rape, 33,827. Murder, out of 1.2 billion people. They had 7,379 murders. So, Japan, number 3, gun crime is close to non-existent in Japan. So, you can only own shotguns and air rifles. So I'm saying like BB guns, I'm assuming would be what they're saying, air rifles or airsoft guns, and maybe.
pellet guns.
Yeah. So no handguns, no automatic, automatic guns. Gun safety class, you have to have a written exam, a accuracy test at a gun range above 95%. You must have a mental health evaluation, a drug test, a background check, and a series of character references. Last year, homicide rate in Japan was 0.2% per 100,000 compared to 5.3% here in the United States. Okay. Number 4, UK. Now, this is where it starts getting a little, now you get into the more, so those are all Eastern countries. Okay. UK, you can have sporting rifles, shotguns. You must have a license registered with the authorities. You must have a valid reason to own. Home protection is not a. This is what I thought was surprising. Home protection is not one of those valid reasons. Wow. You must have a reference of 2 people. You need a mental health check. The shotgun license is $100, and that is renewable every year. The police can come into your house for an interview and ensure that you have your gun stored in a safe place. However, last year, and they don't know if they attribute this to COVID or whatever, but they saw a 10% rise in homicide rates last year in London alone. Something else, though, number of murders committed by sharp objects in London also rose by 6% last year. So maybe they need to start banning sharp objects as well. Australia, and this is the one that everybody refers to. Australia, there's a lot of paperwork. You must belong to a shooting club. You can have, and again, since they have the outback, you can have guns for pest control because of the rugged outback. They had so they had and a little bit of history for Australia. They had a mass shooting back in 1997. You guys are probably too young to remember this, but 1997 they had a mass shooting. So there was like 25 people who died. Australia did this massive, basically gun control program. And so what they did was they did this massive buyback program. Okay. And out of that program, 700,000 guns were destroyed. So they background checks, they look for substance abuse, they look for a criminal record. In the Victoria province alone, so this is the capital. This is where Melbourne, Australia is. Last year they had 100 cases of armed robbery, 45,658 assault cases, 189 criminal homicides, 270,000 experienced threatened assault with a weapon. So what happens when you? So then I found this other article. BBC wrote this article, and this was at the end of the year. And so they said, and I'll just read this straight away. What happens when you take the guns away? What would you guys say? What do you think? How many guns do you think there are privately owned guns in the United States? How many guns, not owners, how many guns do you think are privately owned in the United States?
I've heard the number for it. It's like millions.
I'm not even going to guess because I know it's
ridiculous.
Okay. 350 million guns in the United States. United States homicide rate is 25 times higher than the combined rate of all the other high-income nations combined. Let that number sink in. 60% though. Here's the key though, and this is a stat that the media won't point out, and here's your voice of reason moment. 2018, 60% of firearm deaths were suicides. Okay.
I can see that.
Okay. But we don't, this is the thing that throttles me right here. And I'll go back to I'll get away from the gun control side just for a second. 60% are suicides. That's a sad number in and of itself, because and that's a topic for another Voice of Reason podcast, but how we treat mental illness in this country is very sad. and you guys probably have a lot of people who have deal with PTSD and all this other stuff, and it's a very sad statistic. But when you think about this, okay, 60% of firearm deaths in 2018 were suicide. Now, after Australia's their reduction in guns, death by gunshot crimes reduced by 50% over the last 22 years. However, and here's your history teacher moment for the day, guys. History shows that violence is a part of human nature.
Yes.
Okay. And something that, again, and this is the nerd in me that comes out because I have a lot of friends who adopt from Africa. Our school's counselor, Beth Holland, her sister adopted 2 kids from Africa. The Rwandan genocide of 2017. I don't know if you guys know much about this, but Rwanda civil war has been going on for, goodness, 15, 20 years now. 2017 was the peak where they had tremendous violence without firearms. And you can go and I did some Google image search that would just stun you. We find new ways of killing. 2016 in China, there was a mass attack on a daycare carried out by one individual with not a gun, but a knife. This individual killed 50 people with a knife. Okay, let that sink in. All right.
Mm-hmm.
If we did gun control here in the United States, okay, how would we take care of, how would animals that are pests be taken care of? Anything. I mean, if you go into Pike County, they have everything from coyotes to raccoons to possums to foxes that, I know some parents of mine that raise chickens, and they deal with foxes, and they have to shoot foxes all the time. Okay. What about mercy killings of animals? I mean, okay, so I'm going to if I have a horse that's broken a leg, so should I just get my hatchet out and just start wailing away on the horse's head? Okay. Here's the other thing. Last year, that weapons, this is ammunition, this is guns, this is everything. We're talking about a $50 billion revenue source for the United States. Okay. Mass shootings are, sadly enough, they are part of our social fabric anymore. And that's a sad thing. And again, we just saw it today. And so, we can say whatever. Some would feel safe without guns, but when you think about this, and Travis, you can bring this up here in a second. Gun owners would feel vulnerable. Things that need to be remembered. How is this? And then I found this, and so I went to the right side, and I went to the Heritage Foundation. This is a severe right-wing organization, but they said, number one, non-compliance with gun confiscation laws has been widespread in countries that have strict gun laws. You look at Australia; they're still dealing with the issue of guns today. Americans are already notoriously non-compliant with strict gun control measures in states that have.
Come and take it.
Yeah, come and take it. Pry it from our cold dead hands. We saw what happened when King George tried to make the colonies weapon-free. Firearms and magazines that gun control advocates wish to confiscate simply are not they're not a driving force beside these homicides. The AR-15, now, obviously, didn't you say, Travis or Sean, I couldn't remember who you guys, before we started today, didn't you say that the guy, he had an AR-15 or something like?
Yes, according to Eyewitness, they're saying that the individual who did the shooting in Boulder, Colorado, he said that the person had a AR-15 style weapon. At least that's what they thought that they saw.
Well, okay, so
they probably had it. Who knows?
Well, but here's the thing: violence. Lawful gun owners know this too. And so here's my Second Amendment side coming back out again. Semi-auto rifles, AR-15s, and so this is another stat that I looked up, are responsible for less than 1% of all gun deaths in the United States. And this is the target. AR-15s are, this is the one, and just the amount of ignorance that is out there on, well, hey, we need to get rid of the AR-15s, and people who think AR stands for automatic rifle. It does not stand for automatic rifle. It's the name. I don't remember the name of the manufacturer, but it's short for whatever
Armalite,
Okay, thank you. And
the original maker of that style weapon.
so yeah, and so the thing of it is that the majority of crimes committed with guns by individuals who are they're committed by people who are already prohibited from owning guns.
Yes.
This naive notion that people will abide by this new, this is purely naive. And so what is, Travis, why don't you tell us about these two new bills that are coming out. Why don't you tell me a little bit about these?
So we kind of lightly touched on this last episode. HR 8, HR 1446. I don't have them in front of me, so I can't tell you which one is which, but one of them is basically it's an amendment to background checks, basically making it more thorough and more right. It's more of just like more in-depth background checks for people going to purchase a firearm. Correct me if I'm
That's
wrong.
14
Right?
HB 144 HB 1446 is the one that will have the enhanced.
Is that the background
That's
check?
the enhanced background check. HR 8 is the one that is the license sale of guns to people involving.
Yes.
So
yes. So that one basically, all it's saying is that if you want to transfer a gun from one person to another, there has to be a licensed middleman, or you could be two licensed people yourself. But the point being, there has to be somebody licensed in the transaction somewhere. So I don't know what the NRA was saying about like some registry is what you heard.
well, and
But that didn't appear to be the case when I read through the bills.
So, and I'm actually what I'm actually doing right now. I'm pulling up, and you can. We looked at both of these bills. You can go to congress.gov. I'm bringing it up right now. You can go to congress.gov.
Yep.
And it is a very short worded. Let me see here.
Yeah, these aren't like the stimulus bills. This was pretty easy.
Oh, this was a yeah. I mean, when
Both
you
of
look
them
at
were pretty easy.
so, and by the way, it's among one of the top 10 bills being viewed this week on Congress.gov. But yeah, HR 8 is not a very long bill at all, and so if you read the body of the bill itself, will take you less than probably 3 minutes to read this bill. It is not very long. It is a now let me see here. Yeah,
And it was saying something about like it basically set limits on like how long the background check can be and how short it can be. Basically,
no longer than no longer than 10 days. Let me look here. It is 10 days is the length that it should take. And so that, by the way, this passed the House of Representatives on the 11th. It is currently in the Senate, where it is getting a nice, healthy tabling, I believe. But with things being 50-50, yeah. And by the way, HR 8 is labeled as a bipartisan bill. So it's interesting that it is labeled as a bipartisan bill. So, take that for what you want. But, my thing is going to be this. What do you think? I mean, are we naive in thinking, though, Travis, that this is going to make anything more happen? I mean, this is what I think is silly. I mean, are we expecting great things to happen with these bills?
I mean, I think that's the narrative that's getting thrown out. I mean, I think the narrative I'm getting, and the government, in my opinion, is trying to put more policies into place to protect us from ourselves. It's kind of the narrative. It's like for crime, for we got these mass shootings caused from. I mean, if there's an assault weapon involved, God, they want to tell you about it. And it's not just AR-15. I mean, the whole assault weapon ban is AR-15 is kind of like the Bitcoin of assault weapons. I mean, there's a
Right.
lot of other ones.
Right.
It's just the one they always harp at, but that's different. But anyway, I really think it's. Let's look back at Venezuela, for example. Venezuela in 2012, they proposed a gun and ammo ban to curb the crime rate. It was the narrative that they were proposing at the time. I believe Chavez was the leader at that time.
Right.
Yeah, it was Chavez. Chavez was anyway. That was the narrative, and well, years later, we see what happened. The country is in shambles. The crime rate is absolutely through the roof, and people who were protesting were literally just getting massacred in the streets by the police force and the government. So, I, for one, am very pro Second Amendment. For more than, I mean, this is one of the big things our country is founded upon. I mean, we escaped a government that was trying to take the right to defend ourselves away from us and a lot of other things. And our founding fathers put it there for a reason. Now, obviously, I think you made a comment once, that the the Constitution is set up in a way that it's supposed to be able to adapt to the times, or at least that's how
Right.
it's supposed to. Am I right by saying that?
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah.
we're at a point now where the tools to kill people, the tools to kill animals, whatever, they've gotten better. But if you go throughout human history, I mean, you were talking about human nature. I mean, you go back since the beginning of time, massacres have always been happening. As truly unfortunate and frightening as it is, it's human nature. You can go back to the medieval times, and like villages would just get ransacked and innocent people would just get killed for no reason other than pleasure. As scary as that is, that's fact.
I mean,
I think we still see that today. And
well, and there's some, I've got my, so you listen to Thomas Jefferson, and I mean, he is one who is extremely outspoken about people having the rights to bear arms. He, in a letter to James Madison, what country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance, let them take arms. And those are dangerous things for people to say. Well, are you calling on for treason? No, I'm not. But at the same time, it was to protect us against, and so I want to go back and play. So I want to go back to the other side of this, though. So what you mentioned earlier,
okay,
about how we interpret the Constitution, there is the school of thought out there that is called the strict constructionist method, or the strict constructionist school. And this is the school of thought that says that the Constitution, you need to take it word for word, that you take it as it is written, you don't read anything into it, that's it. Okay. And then you have the liberal constructionist, and these were people who were like your Alexander Hamiltons, who were the ones who said, you need to read more. I mean, it needs to be something that expands to fit the times. Okay. So, and again, this flies and what's bad about this is we have an uneducated populace who wants their rights, but at the same time they say, well, we need to preserve the Constitution for what it is. Well, you can't have it both ways, because there's that group of people who say, Second Amendment gives us the right to bear arms. I mean, and technically, if you really want to quote the Second Amendment, and I'm bringing it up right now, but if you technically want to quote the Second Amendment, okay, A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, so there's two ways in which you can read that. What's the first thing that you, so when you hear that amendment, I'll read it again. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What do you hear? What are you hearing? What are you hearing first there, Travis?
Honestly, I hear the militia. I hear the right to the militia and then the right to bear arms. Now, my question is, if you were to read how you interpret that, though, and again, I'm a Second Amendment supporter, but is it the militia's right to bear arms or is it the civilians' right to bear arms there?
Well, if you look at that, so when we study this, you look at this, you say, okay, the first four words, a well-regulated militia.
Right.
So the Second Amendment, and when the founding fathers set that out, and this is going to drive our fellow gun friends mad, but they spell it out right there in the first four words: a well-regulated militia. Right. We all we want to hear is the last part: the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
But who is the people that is
right.
referring to then?
Right.
That's the yes.
When you go ahead.
No, there lies the dilemma then. If how do you interpret that? And the majority of people, like you said, they read the last sentence, the people's right to bear arms. But if you go back to that very first sentence, who is the people that it's referring to?
So
now I ask the question: do you follow the Constitution as it is written, or do you interpret it to what the times dictate?
Well, if I'm a strict constructionist, I'm reading this the way it reads, because at the time, right, who was the militia? Who made up the militia when this thing is written in 1789? Okay, or 1787, when the Constitution and actually the Bill of Rights were added in 1789. So, who do you think made up the majority of the military?
It was the people.
Well, it's the people, right? Because it was the citizen soldier. Okay, so now and so like you called it before, Travis. Here it is. It is they call it a dilemma. The dilemma is it a, is this in reference to the people, or is this in reference to the military? But here's the other question I want to ask though.
Okay.
How many times, well, let me ask you this, and I'm a big guy. What is it that makes fat people fat? Just follow with me here for a second. What makes fat people fat?
Well, there's a lot of things that can contribute to it. You eat more than you need to. A lack of activity, maybe. I think it's a lot of things put together, but just eating too much, lack of activity, not burning as many calories as not burning enough calories and taking in more than you need.
Colin Dugan just put a statement up. I'm gonna read it here in a second, but he kind of got ahead of me where I'm going. Okay, so I have been big for most of my life. Is it because I use forks? I use a fork to eat. So should we ban forks because forks make me fat? I mean, think about that.
But yes, but I know where you're going with this. So, and I'll ask the question right now. So, is the tool the problem, or is it the person with the tool that's the problem?
Well, now that you say this, and Colin, I hope you don't mind me bringing your quote on here on the air, but I'm going to read what Colin, and he's going right where I'm going with this. Colin Dugan, who's one of our listeners and a student of mine, friend of yours, he says mental health is the key. As a nation, mental health is not addressed appropriately. I agree with this. Our government does not address it, and we as citizens are just as responsible. These people that go off their rocker and shoot into crowds of innocent people, have family, friends, acquaintances, or whatever, that knew of instability or mental health issues within that person and didn't address it to either the person or someone else. I agree with this. There's a problem, and that first step is to admit that there is one. And even if you are a legal law abiding gun owner, I do not understand why you would want the same weapons that you use to protect yourselves in the hands of criminals or mentally sick people. There needs to be some sort of infrastructure in place to prevent these weapons getting into the wrong hands. He said, I am 100% Second Amendment. I'm an avid outdoorsman and love shooting for sports, provided the ammo is appropriately priced. I agree with
He's
that.
not wrong.
Yeah, right. However, I prefer to never have to use lethal force on a human to protect my life. I don't think less guns or gun tax is the answer. Background check after background check after background check, please. Because if you're legal and law abiding and in good mental standing, mental and physical health, there's nothing to hide. And I totally agree with that. Thank you, Colin, for that comment.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where that's where I'm going with this. You know, I have you want to break into my house and try to steal it, go ahead. But I have a shotgun. I have a 12 gauge Winchester shotgun that my father-in-law gave to me back when we first got married. That I keep in my house, and I actually keep my shotgun shells on the other side of the house. I keep them separated from each other, and you know, and they're there. Guess what? It's not killing anybody.
No.
It's not going to kill anybody unless somebody tries to break into my house, and even then, it'll be a shot over their head or shot at their leg or their foot or something. You know, this idea. I mean, this is exactly where, and Colin hit the nail right on the head right there. The issue is people. The issue is people who are dealing with mental health issues, people who are dealing with, you know, the guns. You know, we have to address, I think, what the issue needs to be here. We can take all the guns away that we can. Okay, I read that stat earlier from London last year. London, so 6%, a 6% raise in homicides with sharp objects. So what's next? Are we gonna start banning knives next? I mean, are we going to, you know, is this where we're going to? Is this what's coming up next?
I think the theme here is that we're looking at the surface and not looking at the root of what the problem is. And going back to the statistics that you talked about last year in 2020, you know, 60% of what was it, the gun violence deaths was suicide, correct?
Right.
And gun violence was up last year, right?
Correct. Especially in,
Why is
well,
that?
I think a lot of it has to do.
Of all years.
I think it's because people who are getting stuck in with COVID and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, let's break this down. I mean, mental health is something that it's been kind of talked about. You look at the overdoses last year. You look at the large amount of mental health issues besides just overdose, but that's definitely a pandemic that they don't want to discuss. But you look at all these issues and no one wants to fix that problem. It's just, well, it's the guns. Well, I don't think it is. I think it's the root of the problem is it literally is the people that shouldn't necessarily have these firearms and they have them. And you were talking about we don't treat, you know, mental health properly. We don't. I mean, you hear so many stories of like guys who've come home with this is just PTSD, for example. They go to the VA. What does the VA do? They don't even really do anything other than here, take these pills, come back in a month.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's going to happen when they do that? That's you got all these veteran suicides and stuff, and people wondered why. Now, granted, the numbers, from what I know, has gone down, thank God. But you wonder why that happens, and it's just, I think, overall, it's just America has just done a terrible job at addressing this problem of. I hate to say in mental health because it's such a broad term, but there's so many things that are contributing to this. It's not necessarily the guns. There's a different problem, and I think it needs to be addressed.
Well, and when we break this down, you know, I think that it needs to be something that our government needs to look at, because it's not going to be a quick fix problem. It's not going to be something that we just say, okay, we're going to take guns away and that's going to be it, and that's going to be the end of it. Um, here and so I believe this is what we call our voice of reason moment for the week right here. And we have another comment here. Greg Rodner says, "It's a buddy of mine." He says we're correct. He says the gun can't kill anything without someone pulling the trigger. That's correct. And so when we look at overall the issue of violence in the United States, and human beings are violent creatures. That's just all there is to it.
Yes.
We're not gonna avoid this problem at all. Okay, and trying to say that there isn't a problem, there is a problem. It's not a gun problem though. It's a human problem. And
Yes.
until we start addressing the elephant in the room, which this elephant in the room is going to be, um, you know, mental health. I mean, and what's really
Very
bad about
broadly,
this,
yes.
and this can be a topic for another day too. But I mean,
Yeah.
people are ostracized so bad for mental health in this country. We put a bad label on people who take medications for depression. People who are in anxiety medicine, people who are dealing with whatever. Um, we need to remove that negative view and put out there, if people need help, they need to get help. The answer isn't banning this or banning that. The answer is we need to address mental health, and so
Yes.
that's what needs to take place.
No,
So
I agree 100%. And that I would
so
love to get into that
yeah,
eventually.
that, like I said, that's going to be a topic for another day. um and Colin also adds, he says there is a numbness to people dying in gun homicides. We see it on TV every morning and night. Someone gets shot, and growing up hearing that more and more every day, it becomes less and less of a big deal. And it is a big deal. That's why it keeps trending. Kids are growing up not realizing how big of a deal it is because it happens all the time, and that's true.
That's a
We
great point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we do cheapen. Like I said, we do cheapen how, we cheapen life. We cheapen how people you know people look at this and say, well, where is where is the where's the reason? And where I think that people need to really recognize that there is the preciousness. I don't want to sound so cliche, but the preciousness of life. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're right. I mean, people it's just a headline for some people is all it is. They
Yeah,
just read it and then, oh, just it's another day. I mean, I live in Chicago. What do you think they talk about in the news every day? You know.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well, how much
it's
different do you
it's
guys think it would be if, when we see shootings or any kind of violence or any kind of murders, how much different it would be? And I know it doesn't happen for privacy and respect for family reasons, but let's say 25 people were killed in a shooting. 25 is just a number. I can make up any number and base it off that. But if we started hearing every single name of every single individual that was killed, then maybe there'd be something to it. There'd be more of a bit of humanity to it. Where I was actually talking to someone about this, a coworker of mine the other day, about how, like, in movies, right, whenever, like, I was specifically talking about the new actually show of Falcon and Winter Soldier, Marvel television show, and the beginning opening scene is this big old fight scene that takes place on like a helicopter, and all these helicopters blow up and all these people like die. And I was just like, he probably killed 30, 40 people right there in this opening scene. And that's just like the opening bit of, like, there's all these, we get so used and accustomed to seeing these kind of things. And I'm not saying like movies or video games make people violent. I don't believe
Right.
that at all. But it's kind of crazy how, like, if you thought about it in the real world, like, and that many people just died like that, think of the funerals, think of the families, think of everyone that, like, every single one of those lives that was taken. But now that's in a TV show. Now let's put it in the real world.
Right.
I recently, there was a video circulating about a couple in Pennsylvania that was murdered by their next door neighbor over arguments about snow shoveling. um, which led to like a shootout between Miss these two individuals from Pennsylvania. Their next door neighbor shot them multiple times with a pistol. And while they were bleeding out in the street, he went back inside, grabbed a larger rifle, came back, shot them at point blank, and then went inside and then shot himself.
It's
And
It's terrible.
it's just those kinds of things when you actually capture them on video, and then you actually see them, it just really, really, really makes it that much more real about how violent some of these things can be and how you know I differ from a lot of people in the area from where I grew up because I do believe in a lot stricter gun laws. I believe that they're not necessarily. I'm not a believer in taking weapons away from individuals, but I'm always, for me at least, I'm always baffled when I hear people get either angry or dismayed about, at least better background checks or at least better mental health screenings before we give people weapons. Um, and
yeah,
and
and
it's one of those, one of those
that's
things
what
like in the military, we have to be screened, just to enlist, just to have the opportunity to get a weapon. Let me sneeze.
Oh,
and bless you.
oh, you did it
There it
again.
was, all over the mic. Yeah,
Oh, thank
that's
God for the mute button on that one. My goodness. But when it comes to even putting weapons in soldiers' hands, we have to go through a screening, and we all run through an FBI background check. There's a reason why certain kinds of offenders cannot enlist in the military is because they have to make sure that you can be responsible with a weapon, and even that screening sometimes crazy things happen for that organization. So
don't you
it's
think
it's
though,
amazing to me. Yeah, go ahead.
Sean? But don't you think though that who really are stricter gun laws going to affect though? Who are stricter gun laws going to affect? Are they going to affect? I mean, because any schmuck could. I mean, I can tell you, and maybe this is bad advertising, but starting next Saturday, and I know this because I used to live up in this part of country. Every third weekend in of a month, it's called the Rutledge Gun and Dog Auction. It's in Rutledge, Missouri. It's about uh, it's about 35 minutes east of Kirksville. Okay, and so you can go up there, and there's no 7 day waiting period. It's more like a 7 second waiting period. Okay, so there is there's no who are these gun laws going? Now this the bill that Travis talked about, the HR 8 will take care of that problem of the license. But when we enact tougher gun control laws, though, Sean, who's it going to affect though? I mean, do you think it's going to affect you and me who lawfully can possess a weapon, or is it going to affect? I mean, the target obviously is the crazy people who get a hold of guns, and it's easy to get a hold. Like I said, it's easy. Like I said, go up this Saturday to Rutledge, Missouri, and I guarantee you'll be able to get buy a gun just like that.
Yeah, and that's one of those. It's kind of those double-edged sword kind of arguments where you, yeah, people that aren't actually going to do anything, they're the ones that also are affected by the changes in gun laws, and how quick and how accessible weapons can be for them, especially if they're not going to be doing anybody any harm. I We live in a world where nothing is going to be perfect, unfortunately. Regardless, there's always going to be individuals like Chicago. We speak about Chicago alone, like a lot of the weapons that pass hands there, especially where it's extremely violent, are not legally registered weapons, are not weapons that um
It's true.
like criminals find a way to break the law. They're gonna break the law, and people are going to do crazy things.
Well,
It's one of those weird things where I'm not even sure. I won't even. I'd like to see what some other studies are for like when
right,
these laws get, because we're different. We're just different than other countries, and I hate
right.
it that like we can't compare what works here compared to what works there, because We
Well,
just are so vastly different. I do believe that yes, and many might disagree, but I don't necessarily believe that we have a gun problem. We have a mental health problem, and
mhm.
unfortunately, it seems as if because we have a mental health problem, it benefits individuals to have guns to cause more harm to others, if that makes any kind of sense.
Well, and we just had one of our viewers, Greg Ridenour, just chimed in. He said, criminals will always find a way with or without tougher laws. And Colin Dugan also asked, and Travis, you can address this too. Again, we've kind of pretty much beat this in the ground, but he said Chicago also has one of the strictest gun laws in place in the country, which is true.
Yep.
And I mean,
Yeah, he's right.
I I don't, this is one of those issues where we actually find ourselves on opposite sides of the aisle on where we should be. Ryan Robbins adds, he says, criminals may find a way, but it makes it a lot harder for most criminals to access them. You have to pick a lesser of both evils, and that right there is that's there's the quandary right there. Okay, you
Well,
got
and
to
I would like
choose.
to see a statistic too, because again, I just don't know, and I'm not sure, and I'm sure that someone has gone out, but I do want to know if you take some of these individuals that have either like committed mass shootings or individuals that have gone on killing sprees, if you could find the number of like how long after they purchased a weapon did it take for them to actually go ahead and commit this act of violence, right? Was it like they went to a store, they bought it? Typically no, because individuals have to train usually if you're gonna, and that's a whole nother crazy argument where if you think that if some of these individuals were actually well trained on these weapon systems, like some of these numbers of people that were killed would be much higher. If a well trained individual with a weapon system went in and shot up a place, like you feel like the numbers would be a lot higher. Look at the Las Vegas shootings where that guy knew how to shoot a weapon very well, as compared to like other places where completely mentally unstable individuals have gone in and had weapon system failures within the first 30 seconds of trying to shoot up a place, and that their whole entire plans were foiled just because they didn't know how to unjam their weapon.
Mhm.
So I would like to see what the statistics are on if there was a waiting period. Let's say it took you 30 to 40 days to get your weapon, if the numbers would go down, or how soon, like what would the cool down for this person to be like, okay, I'm not going to shoot this person? Or is it just one of those crazy things where, let's say, some guy's completely normal for 30 years and then just flips a switch one day when he
Snaps,
wakes up and
snaps.
then just kills 10 people?
Yeah. And I want to go back. You were cleaning your nose out when we, but the stat that we said earlier. I looked at these top countries. They're still going to be, if people still want murder to occur, if they still want to kill somebody, they're going to find a way to do it. And like I said, I think we need to find a happy medium here. There needs to be a happy medium to say, okay, stricter gun law. I have nothing. Like I said, Colin mentioned this earlier. He commented on this. I have nothing to hide. They want to look at me. I don't have a problem with waiting. If I want to buy a new gun, I don't have a problem waiting 30 days because I'm not going to go out and kill somebody with it. I'm going to, okay, deer season's coming up next year. And if I move back to Missouri, I'm going to want to get a rifle. Okay. So then I have to go to game masters in Quincy. Okay, so I have to go through the process, and I want to buy a 243. Okay, I want to buy a British rifle, a 243 British rifle. Okay, so then I'm going to go and I'm going to fill out the paperwork. They want to say, okay, it's going to take 30 days. Fine, I'm going to plan it appropriately. I can see where that can be a deterrent for somebody who wants to just go through, say, well, I properly bought a gun and I'm going to but at the same time, those guys who want to kill somebody are going to find a way.
Agreed.
So I think we beat this horse into the ground pretty dead now. So
Yeah, I think we all came to the same
Well, at least we didn't
general
shoot it into the
feeling.
ground, because then it'd be in a couple bits and pieces. So
right.
Well, no, I definitely enjoyed listening to you guys. I was just off camera just because I didn't want to be, you know, having the nose leak and everything for the lovely viewers of Facebook. So I do appreciate you
Okay.
guys. I definitely learned a lot too. It's all since it's always an ever changing thing. It's
Yeah.
always an ever changing subject. There's always something to learn, and I want to say in a perfect world, it's something that we're not. I do believe that everyone at all times should be well prepared, whether or not that means you are armed or not. I believe that you should always have your head on a swivel, regardless. I'm not saying you should live in paranoia or fear. We live in one of the greatest countries in the world, if not the greatest country in the world, when it comes to being able to express your uh, religious rights, your right to free speech, and your right to bear arms. And I will save it for another time. But I loved whenever you guys were talking about a well-regulated militia, and I was like, man, you could sign up for one right now, and it's called the National Guard.
Get
It's
it. Get
the
it.
Shameless
finest
plug.
regulated. Oh
Shameless
yeah.
plug.
No, do you guys have anything else? I do have a trending topic that not so much a trending topic, but a story that I do want to talk about. But I will save that for next week when I can speak on it better and actually
Okay.
go into depth with it. Do you guys have anything else that you'd like to add to today's podcast? You'd like to go on?
I knew we had to address this elephant in the room one of these days, and I'm glad that we did it. I think in a good, tasteful way. Again, thank you to our man. We had a ton. This has been the most active and I'm just scanning. We have
Yeah,
a
we had a lot of
couple.
interaction
We had a
this
lot of
week.
interactions. Thank you guys so much. We had, we've had we get. I know we get a lot more. We get a lot more. We get a lot more podcast listeners than we do live viewers because some people like to be able to pause and take their but for those of you who stuck with us all the way through, thank you. For Colin, Ryan, Greg, thank you guys for this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do a Facebook Live, so we could bring people in on it. So thank you guys so much for that.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks for the interaction. It makes it more fun for us too. Um, we appreciate it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap things up, guys, I wanted to thank you all so much. This was episode 5, and I could tell you from the bottom of my heart, and I know from Andy's and Travis's as well, we appreciate each and every one of you guys that continues to listen. And I assure you, once I'm feeling better, once our schedules are kind of winding down from a little bit of the craziness, we are going to be bringing you a lot of really, really cool things for this podcast, more guests, more different topics, and we will definitely be bringing you the best show that we possibly can. That's all from me on this lovely Monday night. Gentlemen, is there anything you'd like to say right before we sign out?
Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great week.
Yep, same as him. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Podbean and YouTube. We are the Voice of Reason Podcast 2021, and we will see you next week.